As we mentioned, we want to welcome you to our World Religion Day commemoration and celebration today. This is organized by the Baha'i community here in London, Ontario, and we are so pleased to have each and every one of you here with us today. Today we have a beautiful opportunity before us to listen with humility and curiosity, to approach each other with a posture of learning and open-mindedness, to consider possibilities, to explore our oneness, and to hope and work towards a time when there is true harmony between religions. We are Heather and Carl Loco, and we are honored to be your moderators for our multi-faith panel discussion this afternoon.
World Religion Day is celebrated on the third Sunday in January every year to remind us of the need for harmony and understanding between religions and faith systems. The first official observance of World Religions Day, as it is known today, was in 1950 and was initiated by the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States. Its purpose is to call attention to the harmony of spiritual principles and the oneness of the world's religions, and to emphasize that world religion is the motivating force for world unity. To set the tone for our time together, we will now reflect on a few readings from various sacred writings, which highlight the importance of religion. Please join in reflecting on the readings as they are read for us.
O great spirit of our ancestors, I raise my pipe to you, to your messengers the four winds, and to Mother Earth who provides for your children. Give us the wisdom to teach our children to love, to respect, and to be kind to each other, so that they may grow with peace in mind. Let us learn to share all the good things you provide for us on this earth.
That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mood of goodness. Bhagavad Gita.
What God is saying means peace for his people, for his friends, if only they renounce their folly. For those who fear him, his saving help is near, and the glory will then live in our country. Love and loyalty now meet. Righteousness and peace now embrace. Loyalty reaches up from earth, and righteousness leads down from heaven. The Lord himself bestows happiness, as our soil gives its harvest. Righteousness always preceding him, and peace following his footsteps.
Teachers of the world, the Buddhas, are thine own compassionate sons. Thou art thou, O Blessed Lady, Grandmother, thus of beings all. By all Buddhas, single Buddhas, by disciples courted true, then the one path to salvation, there's no other verity. This is one Lord revealed in many scriptures, who becomes clearly manifest at your wish.
My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be as one as we are one, I and them and you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me.
And as for those who believe in Allah and in all of His messengers and make no distinction between any of them, these are they whom He will soon give their rewards. And Allah is most forgiving, merciful. Islamic Writings, Quran 4:153.
Know thou assuredly that the essence of all the prophets of God is one and the same. Their unity is absolute. God, the Creator, saith, there is no distinction whatsoever among the bearers of my message.
This afternoon, we have 5 illustrious panelists who will be with us and responding to the question, what is the role of religion in troubled times? From their own religious context and tradition. So we will start by introducing each of the panelists to you. Each panelist will then speak for 6 to 8 minutes. After the panelists have had a chance to share their thoughts, we will take some questions from you that you would like to hear from the panelists. We want to create an opportunity to learn even more and draw from the wisdom of our panelists. As questions arise for you throughout the presentations, feel free to put those questions in the chat as they come to you. Alternatively, you can wait and post questions at the end as well. If we'll try to get through as many questions as we can, but I expect that we won't get to all questions, but we'll get to as many as we can. And if you have a particular panelist you'd like to ask your question to, then please indicate that in the question, or if it's just a general question for all of the panelists, you can indicate that as well. So we just wanted to let you know that ahead of time so that, as I mentioned, if these questions arise as we're going through, you can put them in the chat. So the other, just to keep you, to give you a sense of how the rest of the afternoon will go, after we hear from the panelists and we have that question time, then we will have a brief opportunity to just talk about some other future possibilities that we would like to speak about briefly, and then we will move into breakout rooms. So there will be a chance for you to interact with each other in small groups, and we've got some questions to help generate some meaningful discussion with your groups. So we'll dive right into to our event. I would also add actually that as you are thinking about the questions that you would like to pose to the panelists, just want to remind you that for this afternoon's event, we really want to create a safe and a positive environment. So please be sure that any questions or comments that you make are respectful. So we'll move into introducing the panelists. We will introduce them in the order in which they will speak. So first we have with us Elder Monica Tracy White-Eye, and she will be bringing the perspective of Indigenous spirituality. Elder White-Eye is a holistic practitioner, a researcher, educator, advocator, and public speaker. She is Lenape Anishinaabe from the nation known in English as Delaware Nation of the Thames. Like most Indigenous individuals, families, and communities across North America, she has experienced many of the negative impacts of colonialization, assimilation, oppression, and these have, of course, created many significant challenges that Elder White-Eye has had to navigate through her life. She has been on a very profound healing journey, and as she moved through her healing journey, the elders recognized her gifts and purpose. She began to travel and assist the elders, learning the medicines, the ceremonies, and different Indigenous healing methods to support individuals and communities and families from the impact of historical traumas. She has journeyed, her journey has taken her through many Indigenous communities, Southern Ontario, Northern Quebec, New Mexico. So she has touched many, many lives. She has had an opportunity to work as intake assessment worker, traditional family counselor, drug and alcohol worker, cultural coordinator and developer in many organizations, as well as with the correction services. In November 2020, she received her Master's of Social Work in Indigenous field of study at Wilfrid Laurier. And today she's currently involved in violence prevention, developing culturally based holistic practices with day-to-day programming and services. And this is through the Friendship Center here in London. She is also a grandmother, and we had a chance to hear one of her grandchildren the other day, and that's a beautiful part of her life as well. And so we want to welcome you, Elder Wide-Eye. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
And I'm going to introduce Mr. Ian Silva, who is going to speak from the perspective of Judaism. We had a chance to meet him, and he's already struck me as a wonderful person. Mr. Silva was born in Wellington, New Zealand in 1946. He obtained his BA degree from University of Wellington and his master's degree in Windsor. His Bachelor of Education at Toronto U of T, and he also studied in Manitoba. He's been a proud Canadian for 54 years. Ian has lived in London for 28 years. This is London, Ontario. Previously, he lived in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Windsor, and Hamilton. As his profession, Mr. Silva has worked as a teacher, a bureaucrat, and a school counselor. He's been married to Judy for 52 years and has the bounty of having 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Ian is an active member of Congregation or Shalom. He has committed over 10 years to the work of the City Diversity Committee. Welcome, Mr. Silver. Our third panelist that we'll be hearing from this afternoon is Reverend Paul Browning, and he brings the perspective, the Christian perspective. Paul was born and raised in Halifax and has ministered in the United Church of Canada for 34 years. He grew up attending a variety of fundamentalist and evangelical churches and was introduced to the United Church by his former history teacher. The United Church has blessed Paul, introducing him to Reverend Sue Browning, who is also a psychotherapist. They have 3 children in university and college and the trades. Kindness, respect, and fairness are their core values. Paul has enjoyed pastoring at Trinity United Church and Community Center on Hale Street for 18 years. During this time, over 200 new members have made Trinity their church home. In the last 5 years, Paul also began ministering at Mount Zion, close to Wonderland and Springbank. And he was instrumental in supporting a new partnership with Trinity and a new engagement with one another and the neighborhood around them. When Paul is not working or having fun with his family and friends, he enjoys playing softball and volleyball, playing in bands, and the stock market. Welcome, Paul. It's wonderful to have you with us this afternoon. I'm going to introduce Imam Ashad Osman, who is going to speak from the perspective of Islam. Imam Ashad, who is also called Nalimi, is a Khatib at Danforth Islamic Center, Toronto, Islamic Center, and other mosques in the GTA. He's a member of the Canadian Council of Imams. He completed his bachelor's degree in Arabic and Islamic Studies in Sri Lanka. He holds a master's degree in public policy and management from the UK and completed graduate training in theology in the Netherlands. Imam Osman is a fundraising consultant by profession who has received the Certified Fundraising Executive designation in Canada. As a religious leader in a community, Imam Osman volunteers his time with many Toronto-based organizations advocating for social justice, minority rights, true inclusion, anti-racism, anti-hate, and supports interfaith collaboration to find solutions to common issues, such as poverty, homelessness, injustice, etc., that are faced by the community. In 2020, Imam Osman received the Interfaith Innovation Fellowship granted by the Interfaith Youth Corps based in Chicago. He's the first Canadian Muslim among the 25 interfaith leaders and dialogue practitioners who have been selected for the 2021 Qaisid King Abdallah bin Abdulaziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue International Fellowship. He recently initiated the first ever Muslim Indigenous Connection Program to train 25 Muslim youth to learn about indigenous spirituality and way of life and understand their past and present struggles to settler colonialism. Thank you for joining us, Imam Ashad.
And finally, we have with us this afternoon, our final speaker will be Ms. Tamara Kyung. Samara grew up, and she brings the Baha'i perspective to the conversation. Samara grew up in rural Hamilton, moving to London in 2014 after marrying her husband, Eric. She grew up with Baha'i parents who both independently found the Baha'i faith and decided to confirm her faith as a Baha'i at the age of 15. Samara works as a registered dietitian here in London, and in her spare time, you can find her crocheting, hiking, playing board games, watching movies, and offering service to the community through study circles and through her administrative support of the Baha'i faith as the secretary of the board of directors for the Training Institute of Ontario. Welcome, Samara. We're so happy to have you with us this afternoon as well. So we are excited to be moving into our opportunity to hear 5 to 8 minutes from each of these panelists. So we will start with you, Elder White-Eye. We'll turn it over to you. And we'll just need you to unmute, please. Thank you.
Okay, so am I able to be like co-host to share? Or
yes,
are you able
give me
to?
1 second.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay.
It should work now.
Okay, let me see here. Can everybody see these slides?
Yes. You can see them.
Okay, perfect. All right. So from the Indigenous ways of knowing and what our role in religion in troubled times is, well, first of all, bonjour. Wabaskisko ni Kenkaya Tabit Nishnakas Makododam Dunjabala Nape Nation Lenny Lanape Nishnabi Koyandao. So I want to share with you just a little bit of that understanding and what we do from the matriarchy perspective as Indigenous aunties, grandmas, sisters, and extended families, and how we work through our spirituality in helping us through troubled times. So this little teaching is called the Grandmother Moon Teachings. And so how we help one another is women gather around a Grandmother Moon ceremony in certain times of every month. And we come together, we interconnect together because we hold each other as a personal responsibility as women, as grandmas, as aunties, as sisters, as friends. And as you can see, it's not only that connection with Grandmother Moon, it's connection with the stars, the trees, the plants, and all of the universe. And our creator of our understanding, Gishamarado, the great mystery. So 13 is our sacred number in our Anishinaabeg ways. It represents 13 grandmother moons, 13 grandfather new moons. They're all in 1 year, they're all in a year. Our calendar consists of 13 moons. It's not 12 months, but we go by the 13 moon cycle. Our elders and ancestral teachers and teachings help us to live in tune and in harmony with Creator and creation. And these are some of the tools, some of the resources, some of what we call within our knowledge bundles to help us within when we go through troubled times, especially in this day, in this era, when we're going through this COVID-19 times. So the turtle has 13 segments in its shell, governed by 28 segments. And I just gotta move this up a little bit. Here you go. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So this is our calendar. I'm going to do this really quickly. It's going to be just a really brief snapshot. So this is how our calendar works. You go around the outside, there's 28 days. And within every 28 days, around either 2 days to 3 days before, or 2 to 3 days after, women, we get together and we bring all the elements of the fire, the air, the water, and our medicines. We all come together and we bring our spirits, body, mind, and heart together as one. And each time we celebrate each part of the 13 moons. And there's the different names. And I'm going to quickly go through them. This is what I do on a monthly basis throughout my time in my grandmother's stage. So as you can see, there's the trees, the plants, the moons, and all those beautiful, beautiful pictures of that visual you see in front of you. That alone is just visually looking at that greater understanding of our connection to all of creation in the universe. So that is what we call the Monodugisis, the first moon of creation. And this first moon of creation, it's a time where we honor in silence and realize our place with all of great mystery of the creation and creatures. We sit and we sit at the fire, we offer our tobacco, we offer our medicines, we come and we come to that place where women of all ages throughout the whole 7 stages of life, we come in and we pray, not only for us, but for our families, for our communities, our nations, and all of the 4 races of when we talk about those medicine wheel teachings. And then February, and this is the next moon, and this is the bear moon. And this bear moon is the second, I'm trying to move this bar here. There we go, yeah. I wish we could. The second moon is the bear moon, which we honor the vision quest to begin in the fall. During this time, we discover how we see beyond reality and to communicate through energy rather than sound. This moon also gives us a special teaching about the birth of the bears, the cubs. In February, there's one morning when there's a heavy fog in the air, and the traditional people know that this is happening. So this is where we honor the spirit and the cubs of the bear, when we know that connection of that mom, that female that's in hibernation, and it's teaching us that understanding of birth. That understanding of that bear means so much to us, that 4-legged, it's medicine, it's a teaching of what it is to be that good mom, that good grandma, and that good auntie. And so this next moon cycle is the sugar moon. The third moon of creation is a sugar moon. And what this does is, because in the winter time, from our spirituality, this is a time to be quiet, meditate, listen to those stories, sit with our grandmas and grandpas, sit with those old ones, those elders, as they share about the stories of their life, of what they've went through, of how they've come to that good place and that good life. So life experiences are always part of life lessons and life teachings. So anyways, when the springtime comes, the maple sap begins to run. And so we drink that water. We drink that sweet water because it helps us to heal, and it helps us to detox, and it balances our blood and heals us. And it's really good for our sugar levels. And it's one of the actually one of the waters that we always give thanks to. So then there's the fish moon, the sucker moon. This is the fourth moon of creation. And it reminds us of when this sucker fish goes to the spirit moon in order to understanding of that cleansing techniques for this world. It purifies the paths and it cleanses all of the water beings. When we talk about the waters, when women are water carriers, we carry life for 9 months. Each of us, we were picked to carry children. So from the indigenous ways of knowing the Anishinaabe teachings is that water is so important for us women to take care of, because we carry the water, so we care for the water. And so and part of that is when on a grandmother moon evening, we come to that fire with water, and that water, it represents so many things, like the sweet water that I talked about, that one of the sugar moon. And also, also that water and the fish are connected to us because they help keep that water. Not only do they feed us and sustaining us and all that and good medicine, but they also help to keep the water clean and purify the water. Okay, and then the flower moon. This is the fifth moon. This is in May, and this is all plants display their spirit for all the world to see. This reminds us, this life-giving energy, the most powerful healing of the medicines of Mother Earth. From Anishinaabe, for us, our original mother is Shnakmokwe, Mother Earth. She's our original mother. She gives us food, trees, some trees give us shelter, warmth, all of those things. I'm just giving you a little bit of examples, but also there's fruits, vegetables that grow on, fruits that grow on the trees, the nuts that grow on the tree, all these things to help sustain us. And so during that time, we give that, we offer that moment in giving thanks during this month and honoring the medicines that our original mother gives us. And it gives us that opportunity to encourage and to explore within us that introspection of spiritual essence. Strawberry moon. And this strawberry moon it's all about the medicines of the strawberry. In this particular month, it's usually it's in June. And so what this is, that understanding, and this represents reconciliation. And we're in that truth and reconciliation era. So this particular month, we talk about what those truths are, those stories, those of what our inner truth, speaking our truth, feeling our truth, understanding our truth, and what it is that we can make those reconciliations. This is a time where we let go of our differences, our judgments, our self-righteousness. This medicine is the first berry, the leader of all berries, and it reminds us of the good medicine that each of us carry, that heart. Our heart is our center of who we are. The next berry is the raspberry. This raspberry reminds us of change, gentleness, kindness. And it helps us too as we gain knowledge and how we help others and how we can raise our families in that good way. So that next berry is such wonderful medicine. And there's a order that we follow in that order of taking care of oneself and honoring. And these are one of the things we do when we go through that moon cycle. And so the next grandmother moon is the blackberry, the thimbleberry. This is the 8th moon of creation. When we honor that blackberry, it reminds us of the abundance of fruits. This is of every 3 years, and it's one of the first plants put on Mother Earth, and its purpose is to protect the sacred circle of life. Every living four-legged plants, medicines, even reminds us spiritual beings as we walk through these human experiences. And when we go through some of those troubled times, they teach us, they help us to recognize, how important that circle of life is. You know, from the Indigenous worldview, you know, we talk of those four hills of life, the baby stage, the youth, the baby youth children stage, the youth, the adult, and then we go into that elder senior stage. That's all part of that circle of life. The corn moon, again, like I said, everything of that's all around us. We women come to that fire and we share these teachings. And this 9th is the corn moon, during which time we learn more about the cycle of life, how each cob of corn has 13 rows of multicolored seeds, which represent all the spirits waiting to begin to their earth walk. It represents our future generations, our children and our youth, and what we need to do to take personal responsibility of oneself. Okay, the falling leaf moon. This is the 10th moon. So this is around October, maybe end of September. It all depends on how that moon cycle goes from year to year. So we're coming up to actual full moon this weekend. Monday, Tuesday is around that cycle between Sunday till Thursday. But the 10th moon is the creation of the falling leaf moon, at time when Mother Earth is honored with the grandest of colors, reminding us as spiritual beings, as human beings, of the many beautiful colors of who we are, of the many beautiful colors that each of us hold within ourselves, of all of creation. And we make our offerings to her. We become aware of all the miracles. Each of us are miracles. You know, it reminds us how beautiful each of us are as amazing, precious gifts of creation. And again, before us, our spiritual energy are once again awakened. Freezing moon. This is the 11th moon. And this is the time when the star nation is closest to us, the closest to us, as every creation being prepared for the coming fasting grounds. We are reminded to prepare ourselves for our spiritual path by learning those sacred teachings and songs. So this is when we start to those home fires, where we start sitting with and we need to remind our youth and our children to go sit with those grandmas and grandpas, to go sit with our old ones, the ones that have experienced life, and so many that have traveled through that circle of life, and to listen, to learn, and learn to listen of those amazing stories that they have to share, because that's part of sustaining us, learning those songs. And then we talk about the little spirit moon. That is a time of healing. Again, we're inside. We're receiving both vision of the spirits and good health. We may walk that red road with pure intentions, and we share our most positive energies with our families and friends for the good of all. And then there's that blue moon. It's in different parts of our 13th moon, the 13th moon of creation, the blue moon, the big spirit moon. Its purpose is to help purify and heal all of creation. Not only are we in these troubled times, it's that reciprocity, responsibility, that we not only looking for that healing for ourselves, but that reciprocity of giving for the healing of all plant life, of all medicines, of all four-leggeds, of all human beings. And so this process, it may take 3 months long of a spiritual journey during this time. And we receive instructions through our dreams, through stories, through universe, and it transforms in our own vision of truth. So I just wanted to share, I'm sorry it was so quick, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of how we as Anishinaabe, Lenape, how us Indigenous, through our spirituality and how we work through troubled times, is where we stand on the land of our mother, that vibration of our original mother. And we give thanks and we honor that respect, and we take responsibility and that reciprocity of giving and receiving and honoring of that circle of life. And so I thank each and every one of you. for being part of that circle of life here today. I give thanks to each and every one of you as we come together as one, and with those 7 grandmother teachings of wisdom, love, respect, courage, honesty, humility, and truth as we walk this good life. I say thank you for all that there is. So I say, Chimigwach Kajamadado, Chimigwach Kajamadado, Chimigwach Kajamadado, Chimigwach Kajamadado, Kanagana. And what that means is, thank you, Creator. And I say that 4 times because it acknowledged the 4 directions, the 4 medicines, the 4 stages of life. But also, Kanagana means all our relations. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you so much, Elder White-Eye. That was fabulous. And as you mentioned, it was a glimpse. But thank you for giving us a glimpse into the Indigenous spirituality and the complexity of that, and that connection to, as you mentioned, to creation and the role of creation in supporting communities and individuals and families through troubled times. And it certainly leaves us really interested in hearing and learning more about that. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. So I have the honor of introducing Mr. Ian Silva. So Ian, please guide us through your thoughts on the topic.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I'm honored to have been invited to present a Jewish perspective on religion in troubled times, and thank the organizers for this opportunity. I would be remiss if I did not mention yesterday's event. Jewish people praying in their synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, who were held hostage for 10 hours by an assailant. That this was not a bloodbath is due to the calmness and heroism of the rabbi, Charlie Citron Walker. Troubled times indeed. Thank God the rabbi and other hostages were rescued unharmed. We Jews are certainly experienced in confronting troubled times. The website My Jewish Learning puts this in a biblical perspective. Jeremiah, a prophet who wrote during the closing days of the kingdom of Judah, struggled to find meaning during the time of the destruction of the temple. We hear his words in a reading from the prophets or writings that follow the weekly Torah reading. In his bitterness, he cried, "The guilt of Judah will be inscribed with a stylus of iron." Despite all that he saw, Jeremiah expressed deep faith that God is the living water that sustains us all. He wrote, "He shall be like a tree planted by waters, sending forth its roots by a stream. It does not sense the coming of heat. Its leaves are ever fresh. It has no care in a year of drought. It does not cease to yield fruit." Jeremiah experienced tumultuous times. He was a sensitive soul who saw it all: destruction, defeat, hopelessness. And yet Jeremiah was also able to find within himself his hope, his faith that rose from the deep recesses of his heart. Thousands of years after Jeremiah, we human beings still experience these evils: defeat, pain, suffering. We experience the devastation of illness, the pain of breakup of a family. Today, though, most of us do not see these tragedies as punishment for our sins. Conversely, many people wonder at these moments of pain and disappointment if God is indeed there at all. The question of today is different. We ask ourselves, how does one continue to believe, to let in God when such devastation surrounds us at times? Pain can harden one's heart. It can make a person cynical, mistrustful of others. Maintaining faith in difficult times is a struggle for each of us, and yet Jeremiah's beautiful poetic words strike a chord for us who want so desperately to feel God's presence beside us as we struggle. Jeremiah offers these words of consolation and hope, describing that a person who has faith in God can survive even the toughest times. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, of blessed memory, puts it thusly: "What is remarkable is not merely that this one tiny people survived tragedies that would have spelled the end of any other people. the destruction of 2 temples, the Babylonian and Roman conquests, the expulsions, persecutions, and pogroms of the Middle Ages, the rise of anti-Semitism in 19th century Europe, leading to the Holocaust. It is truly astonishing that after each cataclysm, Judaism renewed itself, scaling new heights of achievement. During the Babylonian exile, Judaism deepened its engagement with the Torah. After the Roman destruction of Jerusalem, it produced the great literary moments of the oral Torah, Midrash, Mishnah, and Gemara. During the Middle Ages, it produced masterpieces of law and Torah commentary, poetry, and philosophy. A mere 3 years after the Holocaust, it proclaimed the state of Israel, the Jewish return to history after the darkest night of exile. Perhaps the most recognizable modern Jewish perspective on faith in troubled times is the book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. The author, Rabbi Harold Kushner, lost his teenage son to a dreadful disease. Out of this suffering, Rabbi Kushner said, it is the result, not the cause of pain, that makes some experiences of pain meaningful and others empty and destructive. What do you do when you get less from life than it seems you deserve? It's tempting to wallow in self-pity, anger, resentment, or jealousy. On top of all these negative emotions, misfortune also encourages people to lash out at God. Some even decide he must not really exist. After all, if God were really so powerful and loving, he would protect good people from having bad things happen, but all too often he doesn't. This is a simple and powerful train of thought, but according to Kushner's claims in his book, it's simply not true. Efforts to find the specific reason that a bad thing happened are often counterproductive. We don't even need those answers to rise above our pain. Why didn't the devastating loss of his child destroy Rabbi Kushner's faith? He realized that God just can't step in all the time to bend the laws of nature and protect individuals from harm. Our bodies break, sometimes in unpredictable ways, but they also give us life. Flowing water can sweep away a house, but it also carries hydration all around the world. Gravity can cause a rock to fall on your head, but it also keeps your feet on the ground. Humans wouldn't be able to get around, build things, or make plans for the future if our physical habitat displayed no regularity. Maybe an all-powerful God really does love us. Maybe these earthly realities force him to not intervene all the time in human affairs. One can almost find a sequel to Rabbi Kushner's book and call it When Good Things Happen to Bad People. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And that was very thoughtful, using Judaism to guide us through the tumultuous ups and downs from ancient times, through personal lives, through community lives, through political lives. We find through your talk that God remains an anchor of hope and faith, and that we can reframe what we experience always to the good when we have faith. Thank you again.
Thank you, and thank you for also acknowledging the horrific situation. And we really appreciate you bringing that forward, and we're all holding everyone in our thoughts and prayers. Next, we have Reverend Paul Browning. So welcome, Paul. We look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thanks, and thanks to the Baha'i community for sponsoring this. What a great way to observe World Religion Day and to reflect on the positive role that religion can play in troubled times. For me, though, I think it's so important, especially in a context where fewer people have connection with religious community, that we need to distinguish between good religion and bad religion. Because it doesn't matter what religion we're talking about. Every religion has expressions of religion that are great and expressions of religion that are bad and that are destructive and that make troubled times worse than they need to be. And it seems to me that religions become bad when they become arrogant and seek to align themselves with ruling states and empires and the money and power that comes with that. And whenever religions get in bed with ruling authorities that only want to take care of their own citizens, or perhaps even only the elite among their citizens, it doesn't end well. And I think it's important as Christians to acknowledge that colonialization and slavery and the Holocaust and Canada's desire for cultural genocide and using genocide among First Nations and using churches to help them with that awful idea are examples of bad Christianity. And so bad religion is tribal in the worst sense of the word and seeks domination and control over its adherents and anybody else. You know, bad religion thinks it's right and everybody else is wrong. And I'm sure we all know people who look down their noses at us, even though we're good people, because their religious tribe tells them that everybody else is wrong. But good religion of every kind is rooted in a worldview that seeks kindness and respect and basic opportunities for a good life for everyone. And that's a powerful help in troubled times, because it gives us what humans need the most, and that is kind and caring community and awareness. Awareness that allows us to face the worst that life throws at us and still have hope. I was very impressed with a symposium sponsored by the psychiatric department at Western about 5 or 6 years ago. And I really appreciated the honesty of the doctors who were presenting psychiatric and spirituality. And they pointed out that depression rates in the West, as community has broken down, as individualism has taken off, depression rates in the West, despite all the treatments available, have been rising, very high rise in depression and eating disorders for the last 60 years. But the psychiatrist also pointed out, if we look at what we might call underdeveloped countries or developing countries, where the vast majority of the population still participate in spiritual community of various kinds, there's no significant rates of depression or eating orders. I mean, that's something I wish the medical community would be more clear about, because we got to start thinking about that as a people in the West, in Canada. So the sacred stories and rituals of every religion can offer much needed community and awareness. And, you know, the awareness is, as Ian was mentioning, that life is tough and it's not only easy. I think so many people grow up thinking that life's all supposed to be easy and fun. And then when they get hammered by life, they don't have much resilience because they haven't had access to the sacred stories and rituals that remind us that our ancestors had it way worse than us. And so, you know, as Ian mentioned, people say, why do bad things happen to good people? But the real question is, why do good things happen at all? I mean, how in the world is it that we have a cosmos that has amazing life forms and the diversity we have? And we have the creatures able to love and be loved. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to us that bad things happen. The big shock is that so much good that can happen amidst all the struggle. And so I think religious community with its rituals and its sacred stories enable us to see that there is a mystery that some call God, that love was with our ancestors and saw them through and can see us through, and that God in community is how that happens. God sees us through, you know, that hymn perhaps most known, Amazing Grace, those words, through many dangers, toils and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that saw us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. And so that's the encouragement that stirs up our faith when we're part of caring and loving religious communities. And of course, our sacred stories remind us that guns and monetary power that are used for evil will eventually collapse. My goodness, when you see the craziness and the uptick in oppressive regimes and in fascism in the world today, We need to be reminded that evil will collapse and that goodness is stronger than evil. And even though Christianity has been a part of some of the most evils in the world, the reality is it's been also Christian leaders who stood up against them and given their lives to bring enlightenment and to move us forward. And so that's what I want my kids to grow up knowing. Yeah, life can be tough, it can be unfair, but we are connected to the ancestors. We are connected to the earth. We're connected to God, and together we can move things forward and have a rich life, a meaningful life, whatever comes our way. And so good religion reminds us of providence, that amidst evil and randomness, love wins in the end, not just socially, but personally as well. And of course, good religion ties us to the community. We think all those rituals of all the transitions. We celebrate when a baby's born. We celebrate relationship unions. We mourn the loss of loved ones. The community surrounds us with prayer and kind actions, brings us food, a caring word. They hold the faith for us when we get depressed and lose it. They still believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves. That's powerful. And it makes a big difference in people's lives. We learn humanity. We learn forgiveness. We learn humility. We learn who we really are. We only learn the best of who we are if we're surrounded by good people that call it out of us, see it in us, and say, hey, you've got that in you. Come on, you can do this. And so we're freed from putting ourselves on the auction block of life where there's so many expectations out there and crazy narratives and demeaning values. And, you know, I remember being younger, trying to fit into groups that I knew weren't right, but I just wanted the affirmation of, you know, the cool ones to like me. We need to be delivered from that. But that only happens if we got a community that can remind us, hey, you're already a kid of God. You got what you need to love and have a meaningful life. And you don't have to sell yourself short, sell yourself for less. So these are all great gifts that good religion can give. And practical things like when we need food, community can help provide that. When we need housing or connections for employment, help facing troubled times. That's what community, kind, caring, good religious community excels in. And so I'm so thankful that good religion's spiritual community allows us to claim lives of faith and hope and love. To know that we may not understand how, and we may not understand how long it'll take, but if we make the right choices and live in respect and kindness and connect to community and connect to all those of all religions and even atheists who share our core values and connect to Mother Nature, that things will work out in ways we can't imagine. And as I look back on history, it seems to me that the arc of history is toward more human rights. And there are times when goodness just breaks out after hundreds of years of oppression, and positive change can happen so fast, we're just amazed and nobody predicted it. But that's the kind of view and faith and hope and love, I believe, that comes from good religion and kind spiritual community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was great to hear your perspective. Thank you for acknowledging and reminding us that indeed religion can be used to create troubled times, as we see very frequently, including yesterday. And also for your sharing your perspective around the importance of kind and caring community that supports us through troubled times, and that awareness that religion can bring of the fact that yes, troubled times can happen, but we have something that can carry us through, and we have that vision of moving to a better future where goodness does prevail. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Imam Osman to also share his perspective on this topic. It's been a great learning experience so far, very enriching.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be with all of you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
perfectly.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Before I start my small brief talk, I also want to acknowledge what happened yesterday. In fact, in the end, when I received a lot of messages from the rabbis and some of the imams in Toronto, what I realized is that in Texas, many interfaith leaders went there and spent about more than 10 hours working with the law enforcement agencies to bring that to a conclusion. So we are glad. Yes, there was a lost life, as my dear rabbi said, but still we are glad that it came to a peaceful conclusion. And also the rabbi of that Beth Shalom, Beth Israel temple, that his behavior and conduct is amazing. So that's really connected to what how I'm going to structure my speech today. To start off with talking about what is Islam's guidance and teachings in troubled times. The foundation for this teachings is eschatological. The premise is eschatological. That means that this world is temporal and ephemeral. And while the hereafter, where we are going to face after our death, is perpetual and everlasting. So that's where the foundation has been. So everything happens in this world is short-lived. It will come to pass. It will not be a bed of roses. This world is not a bed of roses, a magical place where there aren't any challenges, calamities, diseases, death, destructions, and heartaches, etc. That's how the world has been created. It's very fragile and destructible. This is a makeshift adobe to transit through to the permanent adobe that is the hereafter. So from this premise, from this foundation, if you look at the troubled times in our life or in the world or in the community, what's happening around us, these are actually temporary tribulations that are sent to test believers' faith and resiliency. And why? It's because that what matters is how the physical world, what matters is not how the physical world around us behave, not how that crazy, insane person goes into the synagogue, but how we react to that. So that's a great example what we saw yesterday. And even the person who went to take them hostage, he also said in the audio clips, which I heard, saying that this is a great man, I don't want to hurt him. So he saw the humanity comes through even in that troubled, dark moment from Rabbi. So we as humans, how do we react to situations around us? So Islamic teachings actually talk about and regulate human behavior than the structure and the forces of this living environment. We see there's a permanency and perpetuity for those directives, constant and repeated reminders. I'm going to give one example of a prophetic narrative, which sums up this fundamental understanding of this world and the basic two qualities that Muslims and every human should display during ease and hardships. This is not only the hardships, also talks about the ease. People can lose themselves during times of ease. The Prophet said, and I will read it in Arabic, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ فَإِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ لَهُ خَيْرٌ فَإِنَّ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرًّا شَكَرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ وَإِنَّ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرًّا صَبَرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. A believer's affairs are amazing. The way he or she conducts himself or herself brings immense benefit to him or her, no matter what the circumstances is. If something pleases them, they will show gratitude to God. That is beneficial for them. If any calamity, problem, or challenges befalls on them, they will patiently persevere. That too is beneficial to them. There are two character traits, the gratitude and the patience. There are profound lessons in this prophetic narration. I'm going to just list about three. One says that is ease and hardships fluctuates in human life. You can't always expect ease. You can't expect always a dark moment in your life. Second, humans cannot understand the full wisdom and the reasons behind why these things are happening to us. We will never be able to grasp the enormity of all things what's happening around us. For 2 years, all our minds cannot comprehend why COVID. So how can we understand everything? And third is very important. Human hearts don't have the full capacity to experience happiness or sadness, because that brings negative consequences, just like Rabbi Ian earlier said, the negative emotions, consequences to our spirit, body, and family, and like, for example, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, violence. Even people are overly excited, they have heart attacks. So that shows that our hearts cannot take everything. So this is the time we release that. When there's a happiness, we release that by showing gratitude, saying that I'm humble, comes from you. At the same time, when something comes, okay, you understand the wisdom, I will persevere, I will be patient. Now, let's quickly apply this to the COVID situation. 2 years and ongoing. Could there be another bigger problem than this, what we are facing? We don't know what's happening. There's no silver light. There's no light in the end of the tunnel. So easy to lose patience and easy to forget the blessings. Easy to lose patience. We can become overwhelmed with anything and everything happening around us and lose our humanity. But this shall too come to pass. What we cannot afford is to come out of this pandemic having lost our character, values, and spirituality. Similarly, is it the time easy to forget our blessings when something happening around us, a lot of troubled times. But if we were to deeply look into our lives, still we can see many blessings. We are blessed with many things. I remember this beautiful story of one family. The last year, in 2020, and in the summer, their son had a major accident. He was hospitalized for more than 45 days. Father lost a job, and on top of COVID. And you can imagine all sort of problems came to their life. And the father, he shared this with me, came to the mosque, and he said that in December, we were going through some immense trouble. What we did was, I heard a sermon about gratitude. I asked my family to search this together, gave a piece of papers to everybody, asked them to write down, even the children, to write down what are the gratitude, what are the things you can be thankful for, what are you thankful for? Write down everything from starting from January until now. He says, he told me, Imam, trust me, I got everybody writing about 2 to 3 pages long things, including the son who was in accident, he came home. He also started to write. So, this is what the Quran says, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Verily, with all hardship, there's ease. This is a beautiful Arabic word, a lot of meaning. What is important is that Inna ma'al usri, in Arabic, al usri means that only one difficulty. But if you were to count the blessing, the ease, yusran is multiple. So together with that, it comes always together with, if we were to, if you were to look at that, we'll find all these blessings around us. Now, this gathering itself is an immense blessing during the COVID time. So I will end with this important teaching. So, okay, now the Islam or the Quran asks human to behave in a certain way. What is the incentive? Why should they behave that way? Why should they be why should they be grateful when there's something pleases them? And why should they be patient when something calamity happens to them? It is the incentive is supported by many verses. That is the reward which I believe Ian also spoke about. The reward for those who are patient and persevere, and reward for those who don't lose the humanity, and for support for those who are actually supporting other humans to lift everybody up. So with this, I will end this small talk. I hope that I did not go over the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imam. Thank you for your reflections. I would say that your talk on gratitude and patience, gratitude is also supported by the work of Robert Emmons, who actually talks about using gratitude journaling to just increase our positivity, to increase our resilience. Also, when we go back to some of the ancient teachings, Isaiah, the book of Isaiah talks about those who trust in God, they shall renew their strength, and they shall rise up on eagle's wings. Again, it goes back to faith and trust in God, helping us through tumultuous times. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we will move to our last panelist. So we'd like to welcome Tamara Kyung. to share your words, Samara. And as a reminder, Samara is sharing from the Baha'i perspective.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation to participate. I'm likewise also very honored to be speaking among all of you, and thank you for sharing those really, really wonderful insights. And, you know, just reflecting also on that, on what occurred in Texas. You know, I was reading also that the rabbi actually saw the hostage taker as someone who needed aid and needed to come and have a place to stay. And really his heart was just so open and thinking about that to invite them. So I think just really wanted to highlight that character and that spirit as is being described and shared even more by Imam Osman. Thank you for that. And I'd also really like to thank the organizers for this question. It really had me reflecting in a deeper way about the role of religion during these times. And to be honest, the first question that I thought to myself was wondering, you know, does the role of religion change in troubled times compared to maybe peaceful or you know, times of unity in the world? And, you know, I was thinking about this eternal nature of religion that I think we've been kind of alluding to in different ways among the different speakers. And I thought, you know, maybe there are conditions, you know, regardless of the situation and, you know, in times of trouble or ease, that actually the role that religion holds might be quite similar even throughout those times. But then I was thinking really about the historical nature of religion, right? And the times in which each of these world faiths came to be, and really how much religion is rooted in history. And how I see, you know, even today, I see the search for truth and the longing for meaning really quite sharply based on these times, you know, with COVID or with the many other challenges that this world is facing, that, you know, there is a little bit of a difference there that affects the way that we might interact with religion. I thought actually I wanted to share just a few thoughts also about what I mean when I'm describing religion. You know, certainly there is quite a bit of consensus about what we're talking about today. But I think there are actually many conceptions of religion that exist in the world, which I think others had also alluded to. So I just wanted to spend a few moments thinking and describing that. And I think actually the role of religion is kind of connected to these thoughts as well. So it will begin to answer this question that's been raised also. So the Baha'i faith really describes two systems of knowledge by which we investigate reality. The first being science and the other being religion. And these systems of knowledge are described as quite complementary systems that actually kind of keep one another in check. You know, science without religion certainly can lead to materialism, and religion without science can really lead to superstition, sorry. So religion is really a source of knowledge that totally embraces consciousness, that really considers the whole human being, and historically has been this kind of primary agent, this primary factor in the spiritual development of civilization. I wanted to share a quote from this document entitled One Common Faith, which was commissioned by the Universal House of Justice, the supreme governing body of the Baha'i faith. And in referring to religion, it states, quote, "No other force in existence has been able to elicit from people comparable qualities of heroism, self-sacrifice, and self-discipline." And, you know, in reflecting on these qualities and just, you know, seeing the troubled times that we're living in, how much these qualities are really required to, you know, to be steadfast during these times, and just thinking of religion as this force that's going to assist us to be able to move through these challenging times. But of course, we need also science. We need science together with religion to advance as one people on this earth, as a civilization, in order to advance materially as well as spiritually. That both of them are really required. Religion might also be conceived of like a vehicle or a means of releasing spiritual forces that are capable of bringing about the transformation of the individual both in their mind and heart, and the transformation of society, where new patterns of interaction and order emerge. So this conception or thought about religion really goes beyond that personal relationship with God and begins to embrace the whole community, and considerations also for the institutions of society at large, as well as religious institutions. So, kind of going back to this idea that the purpose of religion and its role in troubled times is really firmly grounded in history, and involves really this, its role, perhaps might be this patient cultivation of the potential of the human species. I just wanted to share also another quotation from Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. Quote, "These principles and laws, these firmly established and mighty systems, have proceeded from one source and are the rays of one light. That they differ one from another is to be attributed to the varying requirements of the ages in which they were promulgated," end quote. So, reflect also on this quotation with yourself, but, I was thinking, firstly, it kind of describes actually maybe both of these concepts, this idea that, is religion different in troubled times compared to times of ease, that there is maybe this eternal nature of religion, this thread that kind of continues throughout history. And then there are also elements that are attributed to the needs of that age in which that religion was born, and just how tied to history it is, and the needs of that time. But really beneath all of the suffering that we're seeing in troubled times, the process, this advancement of the world, of people moving towards progress, is essentially a spiritual one. Baha'is recognize that there's kind of these two parallel forces that are operating in the world. It's clear that humanity is suffering from immense disintegration. Systems are falling away. We have war, terrorism, chaos, physical and psychological insecurity, poverty. In other ways, disintegration of some of the harmful systems that have been built up by humanity. It can be, it's not that disintegration is always bad. Sometimes disintegration can lead to progress. But on the other hand, there are forces of integration that are bringing people together through the adoption of new values, building a new foundation for the establishment of a new social order. So in thinking about these two systems, like how do we, what does that practically look like in the Baha'i community? How might we use religion as a means to address troubled times? So the Baha'i faith seeks to address these challenging times really with steady, loving work at the grassroots of communities. A system of distance education has been created, education being, this idea of universal education, both spiritual and material, being very key in the Baha'i faith, that this system could be a channel for these spiritual forces. Likewise, how on a larger civilization scale, religion is kind of, allowing those spiritual forces to move through. Could we also create another channel to further enable people to apply some of these spiritual principles, to empower them to contribute toward this broader advancement of civilization? So, this program, this system of distance education, supports children in children's classes, youth kind of coming of age, 11 to 15-year-olds in groups to think about empowerment, to think about their lives, youth and, also young adults and upwards towards every age group, in study circles and in thinking actually together about, how do we think about worship and understanding our teachings? And then how do we translate that into reality? Like, what does that look like in society? And, it really requires this development of developing our understanding, our knowledge, skills, qualities, habits, and abilities to really be able to live a life of service, to kind of put that into practice. And, going back to that conception of religion being, these inseparable advancement of both society at large and the individual, that really our purpose in life, our role in religion is connected to the advancement of, ourselves as a person, the transformation of ourself towards, further and further qualities that, religion and teachings have brought us towards. And how do we translate that into communities, starting with our neighborhoods, starting with our, broader, could be urban or rural settings. What does it look like to bring that into being in our communities? And then how do we engage, like today in these discourses in society, these larger conversations about what it is. So thank you for being able to think more about this question and just to be able to share a few thoughts about this role of religion in troubled times.
Thank you so much, Tamara. It's wonderful to hear your perspective. Thank you for reminding us about that search for truth and meaning that we as humans all engage in, and the role that religion can play in that, and that perspective of how religion can truly shape us and transform us as individuals and families and communities and as a world. So thank you so much for talking about your thoughts on that. So we had, I'm sorry, you were going to say something too.
Well, before Heather talks about the breakout rooms, I just want to share some of my thoughts on what we've heard so far. It seems to me that spirituality, whether we want to call it religion, but I'll call it spirituality, appears to be the light that allows us to see especially well in the dark. And that this light is always there even during the day, during light times. So we should reflect on what that light is, especially in troubled times, because it is there. How do we see it? Those are captured in many of what we've heard from the first speaker all the way down to Samara. Thank you so much. And we'll be going to the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Carl. So we had planned to finish at 3:30, and we did want some time for people to connect a little bit, and we did want some time for questions as well. So I think we'll maybe do one question if so we'll be going a little bit past 3:30, but not much. So we'll do one question, and that is a question that came from Daniel. What is the role of spiritual feelings that go along with the reasons for belief? I'm thinking about words mentioned like interconnectedness, respect, kindness, gratitude. So I'd open that up to all the panelists. If there's one or two of you who would like to say a word or two about that question, we'd be happy to hear your thoughts, and then we'll close off this portion of the afternoon and move into breakout rooms. Would any of you, if you'd like to respond to this, please just unmute and go ahead and share your thoughts.
Can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. It is in the chat as well. It is, what is the role of spiritual feelings that go along with the reasons for belief? I'm thinking about words mentioned like interconnectedness, respect, kindness, gratitude.
Okay, so for me, from the Indigenous ways of knowing worldview, the word religion isn't in our teachings. It's all about spirituality. And spirituality is all part of physical, psychological, mental, and emotional. And so when we think of that circle of life, that ongoing, everlasting, each of us that stand in that circle, this is how I look at each of us here. We're all in that virtual circle of life together, sharing. We all are equal. We have that equality of sharing in who we are, that interconnectiveness. We can say connectiveness, but when we say interconnectiveness, interrelational, it's such a wonderful feeling of acknowledging oneself, of who we are as such amazing human beings. We are such beautiful, precious gifts of creation. And so that is what my answer is to that question. Briefly, that was just a really, really snapshot. We could go on for days, but yeah, Miigwech.
Thank you, Elder White-Eye. Any other panelists wish to speak to that question? If so, please unmute and share your thoughts. Okay. Oh, Samara, I saw you moving forward. Were you just about to say something?
Sure, yeah. I just very briefly, I was just thinking about spiritual feelings being kind of maybe an expression of being, there's some writings or descriptions in the Baha'i faith that talk about, maybe being in a state of prayer or being in really quite a spiritual state, and that, these feelings might be expressed, during that time, and working towards maybe being in this constant state of prayer or of spiritual gladness of whatever it might be. So I think it's, polishing the mirrors of our hearts to reflect those qualities more and more, to be able to, have those almost like a light reflecting off of one another as, the result of, really being that close relationship to God or to the Creator.
Thank you so much. So before we go out into breakout rooms, we recognize that some of you may be able to stay with us for the breakout rooms and some of you may not be able to stay. We do hope that you do stay. We have a few questions that we would like to give you a chance to help stimulate some conversation. So in your breakout rooms, after you very briefly introduced yourselves, we would ask you to think about questions. You could share very briefly what brought you here today, and then a couple of questions to stimulate brief discussion. As you listened to the panelists, what perspective or insight stood out for you this afternoon? And the second question, what is something that you are curious to learn more about? We recognize that much of what you've heard today really may make you interested in trying to hear more and learn more. So those are the questions. We'll put those up in the chat for you so that you can have those to guide your breakout room. But before we move into the breakout room, we want to just so very much thank each of our panelists for being here today. It has been so inspiring and informative, and it's been such a wonderful experience to hear the perspectives that you've brought from your religious tradition on this question of religion, the role of religion in troubled times. And I know that each one of us is taking something back with us to reflect on and to think about and to incorporate into our way of being. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that. We have also wanted to let you know that the Baha'i community is continuing to organize events and opportunities for us to connect with each other. And we would very much, if any of you who are participating today are interested in participating in other future interfaith gatherings, we would be very pleased to either work together on organizing something. If you have ideas or suggestions for events that you might be helpful for us to put together, we would be really happy to hear your suggestions. We also, of course, will be doing something for the International Day of Elimination of Racial Discrimination, International Women's Day, and there will be, those are in March, and we will be having other events as we proceed through the year. And please, if there's any interest whatsoever in connecting and collaborating and organizing some interfaith opportunities, we would be really, really happy to do that with you. You can see our contact information here. So this is how you can reach us. We would like to, before we shift into the breakout rooms, the last thing we'd like to do is to share a prayer together. And so this prayer, I think, is going to come up on the screen. I think, yes, there we go. And so we'd like to share.
Kind Lord, Thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In Thy holy presence they are all Thy servants, and all are sheltered beneath Thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at Thy table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of Thy providence. O God, Thou art kind to all. Thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all, let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of humanity. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, our hearts together. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh the shortcomings of all humanity.
Well, thank you. At this time, we will move into breakout rooms. This will be a random assignment of, I think, four to five people per group. And we encourage you to share with each other and get to know each other a little bit. Then we will just gather back here in about 10 minutes for 10 to 12 minutes for just a final thank you.